Okay, more from my memory than for the explanation of rebuilding the thing. The roller, as it sits broken, is right at the end, right in here. It is 2 inches from the edge of that plate to there. I think what I'm going to do is get a collar that fits over top of this shaft, cut this out, and press fit it so that it's halfway, so that it fits over top of that with a good weld and everything, and then put another roller bear or another pillow block bearing right here, weld another extension plate on this. So 2-inch space. So depending on how long I can get a collar of, the closer the better for toughness, because it broke this shaft from doing that kind of thing with a pounding. And then the other ones up there are all extended out that far, but I used big shafts for the center ones, right? So boring bar, we're taking there's the lighting there, the threads out of the collar. It'll be just the right size when it's about 10 thousandths more than that to fit over that shaft as a press fit collar, and then maybe we'll get away with it instead of rebuilding a brand new roller. Okay, well, the roller repair, what we ended up doing was took a piece of steel and machined it so it would fit over the shaft nice and tight. And then it's only halfway into this collar, right? So you're it's that deep, so it's about the match of where the shaft is. So I was going to cut it and put it on the end of here and butt it in, right? Then I put this piece on so that there's enough bearing space so that you can put it in the thing and still have a bearing. Then when we're all done, we put it in the lathe to turn this down to the outside bearing size, and the shaft is so bent that we can't get it there without having a wobble and cutting out too much so it won't fit the bearing. Then we got looking at it and said, how are we ever going to have 3 pillow block bearings exactly just right when one of them is higher than the other, so your center of gravity is going to be worse and everything else. So then what I'm going to do instead is just cut this out, drive this on, and then just weld a good gusset and stuff in here and live with it until it breaks, and then build it with a bigger shaft. Okay, so I'm going to weld these 2 collars together, or ground them out, so I'll weld them out a little bit, and then I'll weld them up. Then I'll weld the collar to the shaft. Then we will heat this and drive it onto the roller. But first we'll just weld this and see how crappy it looks. Since you're watching, it'll be bad. I like that MIG. Come look at this weld. You're in the shadow there now, I think, but yeah, that actually looks good. Looks like I know what I'm doing. Anyway, so I'll rotate and weld and rotate around and do that whole thing. I need just a bit faster wire speed. Works good though. Okay, well that's tacked. Anyway, the weld looks okay, huh? So now we'll heat up the end, drive it onto the shaft. Can you see the color in it? So I'm heating it up so that it's hot. And why would I do that? Because the metal will expand, right? Yep. Okay. The way to test it is to lick it. Yeah? Yeah?
Yeah.
Don't think so?
Oh.
Tight, isn't it?
Yep.
Feels that way. That's it. Okay. Now let's have a look at what it looks like in there. So it's into the collar there all the way. So then now, okay, so now that it's in there, we'll let this cool and we'll tack this a couple times with the welder. And then we'll take it out to the machine and figure out where it fits. And I can weld this with the big welder, but I can also put some braces in here to keep it from flexing on the head and everything. That's the next phase. Okay, so put the bearings on there to see how it would spin and how much of a wobble. So if you come up and put your camera right down in here, you can see this gap here, right?
Mm-hmm.
And see how much that.
It like goes close to it and then it goes far away.
Yeah, because that's showing the distance of how far away it is. So that's 3/16 of a bend probably in it. But much. So having 3 bearings on there won't work if it's got that much of a bend on the shaft. So pillow block on the end and standing over there on that other thing. It was wobbling about 3/16, so I put a wedge on the opposite of the high spot, which was there, and then I tacked the high spot, which will shrink towards and pull it just a bit further. And if I can see the, why don't you roll that for me? If I can see the gap there, we're basically got her dead straight. So that is good enough to try to use that other bearing if I have space for it. Progression. Well, sitting where it was with the sprocket over here, I was planning originally to have pillow block bearings with I was hoping the same series, and then they'd be the same thickness. But we're actually probably okay anyway, because I can just trim this piece of trash off here and build a plate that fits. That's pretty close already, right? Build a plate that fits exactly on this. Put the pillow block bearing where I can, as close as I can to here, and then weld that plate back onto here instead of on flush here. And then it will be supported. So the chances of breaking it again are much, much less, because you've got 2 bearings kind of holding this nonsense here. And yeah. Well, here's a way to dress something down. So the bearing is just about right, and it's dead straight here now, or really, really good. Not quite right. And I don't have a lathe in my pocket, but it's only like 1/1000th or so. So there's more than one way to skin a cat. Now one of the things with doing it this way, of course, is nothing's stable, and you could actually have an egg-shaped, but we're kind of like within 5/1000ths of a wobble there, 10/1000ths there, between 12 and 20/1000ths, and we need to be 25, so I'm pretty dang close. Anyway, I don't know if anyone's done that before. It's probably not the proper way to do it, but that's how it's happening today. Okay, well, we got her blocked in. So here we go. Something wrong with that rod. There's no more flux on it. Anyway, that's probably not fun watching anyway.
Okay, I'll stop it.